From the studios, it's Election Yard here today, and we are going to talk about the generic ballot for the 2026 midterm elections. Now, what is the generic ballot? So this is just kind of one of those poll questions that pollsters will throw out to the people who are being surveyed, just generally saying, if there were an election held today, which party would you vote for? In this case, for the midterm elections, it would be for control of Congress. Which party would you support? Either the Democrats or the Republicans, or some people may choose independents or third party, or you may have a number of undecided, but that's basically what the question is. Now, sometimes this can give us insight into how things are going politically, the direction that the upcoming election campaign is going to go, and ultimately who may win. Now, I will preface this by saying that we are about 8.5 months away from the 2026 midterm elections. But I think it's important to start looking at the trends now, because we do have some special election data. We had the 2025 November elections that are starting to paint the picture of what could be a Democratic year. So we figured we would look at the generic ballot today to see if that's what's being borne out there as well. So on Real Clear Politics, if you look at their average as of today, as of the date that we recorded this, which was February 23rd, the Democrats have the lead in the national generic ballot, 47.5 to 42.7. So the Democrats are leading by about 5 points. So Real Clear Politics have over a dozen polls that are factored into this average. We're only going to show you a few of them. We'll talk about a few others. So the first one that we're going to show you, and I'll explain why we're showing you this in a minute, this one is by RMG Research. This is Scott Rasmussen's poll. So they have the Republicans ahead in the generic ballot, 47 to 45. And the reason we mention this is because since November, RMG Research is the only pollster that has had the Republicans ahead on the national generic ballot. Every other one has had the Democrats in the lead. So now what we'll do is we're just going to show you the three most recent ones. So one of them, Reuters Ipsos, February 13th, 16th, were the sample dates. And you can see there's a lot of undecideds here. The Democrats lead 41 to 37. But there's a huge chunk of voters in this poll who are undecided. So still a lot of room to maneuver here. Not so much in the next one we're going to show you. This one is an Economist YouGov poll, the same dates, February 13th to 16th. Fewer undecideds, but a little bit more of a distinct Democratic edge there, 47 to 40%. So the Democrats a 7-point lead there with about 13% undecided. And then the most recent poll we're going to talk about, this is by an outfit called Big Data. It's called the Big Data poll. February 16th through 18th, 1,800 likely voters. They have the Democrats hitting 50%, up 50 to 41, with 9% either refused or undecided. And what's interesting about this pollster is that if you dive deeper into who's funding them, this is a right-wing poll. This is a conservative outfit here. And they're coming up with the Democrats up 9 points. In fact, some of their crosstabs in this poll, which came out on February 19th, so just a few days ago from our perspective, their crosstabs are very interesting and very favorable to the Democrats. So of those certain to vote, the Democrats lead 51 to 39. Of those who are extremely enthusiastic to vote, the Democrats lead 55 to 39. So, yeah, there are some bad numbers in here. They do have Trump's approval in the low 40s, which is probably a little higher than most pollsters do at this point. But, I mean, this is a conservative outfit, and they came up with a pretty sizable Democratic lead. So that's where the generic ballot stands now. So what I figured it might help to do next is to talk about where the national popular vote was in the U.S. House races during the last two midterm election cycles. So first, we're going to show you the midterm elections in 2022, in which the Republicans flipped the House by a narrow margin. The Republicans won the national popular vote by about 3 points, 50 to 47. I know the Republicans in 2022 were hoping that it would be a wave election for them. It really wasn't. The Democrats held their own. They did lose the House majority, but they held their own. Whereas in 2018, that midterm election, that was a Democratic wave year. And you can see the Democrats won by about 8 points, 53 to 45. The Democrats picking up over 40 seats in the House in that election. So what does all of this mean right now? All of the numbers that I just gave you, all of the facts, all the figures. Well, right now, nothing, because the election's in November and it's February. It's still just interesting to see the trends develop. Now, if you were to go onto a website like Real Clear Politics or another website that aggregates these poll results for the generic ballot or whatever other questions you want to ascertain, you would see under this one specifically, the generic ballot, that over the last few months, the Democratic advantage has very slowly grown. Last year, it might have been 1 or 2 points, and now it's closer to 4 or 5 points. So it has grown, not by a huge amount, but it has grown. So another question that you might be asking in this case is, if you're thinking that this could be a Democratic wave year, and the possibility certainly does exist for that to happen, I don't think I can say that yet only because it's February. I don't think that I can sit here today on February 23rd and say, I can guarantee you it's going to be a Democratic wave election. The signs are there that it might happen, but I think we have to wait until we get much closer to the election before we start making predictions and judgments like that. However, if you do want to go back and look at the last Democratic wave year, which was 2018, let's say you wanted to ask the question, where were the Democrats in the generic ballot at this point in the 2018 election cycle? Well, I did go on Real Clear Politics. I looked back at their averages. I looked at their graphs, and you can do this yourself. The Democrats were up probably about 7 points in the generic ballot at this time in 2018. So the Democrats in 2026 may be a little bit behind that, whereas they were up 7 at this point in 2018. They're up about 5 now once you average all those polls together, which is still a good spot for the Democrats to be in. There's certainly time for this to change, whether in a favorable or unfavorable direction for them, but they're not running too far off of where they were in the last wave midterm election that they had. Now, certainly if you're the Democrats, you want to see this margin grow and grow and grow. And of course, we still have to deal with the redistricting that has happened all across the country, where states have gone out of their way to redraw their lines. You had Republican states doing it, and then Democratic states did it in response. There are going to be very few House races, relatively speaking, out of the 435. Very few House races that are actually competitive at the end of the day. So who knows how the popular vote nationally and the seat count are going to line up at the end of the day. We're just going to have to find out in November. But I would certainly rather be where the Democrats are right now, being up about 5 points in the generic ballot. And again, I will say I can't sit here and proclaim that it's going to be a wave election year. All I will say is it could be. There are some signs that we've had, not just through polling, but through actual election data that point to that being a possibility, but we need more information. We're still way too far away from the election to predict that, but if you're the Democrats, it's so far so good. And for more on Election 2026 Election Yard, like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We'll see you soon.